Gentleman yields back. I now recognize myself for questioning. Again, I want to thank the witnesses for your time and your patience today. Also want to personally thank Councilwoman and Assemblywoman for visiting in New York with the group that came last week, for your passion about this issue and for your willingness to come here to DC and testify. Mr. Spencer, I wish we'd have had a chance to talk to you when I was at Floyd Bennett Field last week. I think you could have shed some additional light on the issue. And, you know, you can tell there's a lot of passion around this issue. This hearing is about building migrant camps on Floyd Bennett Field, but it obviously has far-reaching effects all the way to the southern border throughout many parts of our government. We can't solve those issues here today, as much as I would like to solve those issues. But we do know there's a reason why there's a flood of migrants into New York City. But Mr. Spencer, had you been there last week, I think you could have added to the questions that we asked. When we were meeting with New York City officials and Park Service officials, the question was raised about security and safety if these migrant camps were built. We were assured at one point by New York City officials that they would take care of security around the migrant camp. I'm going to move over to Ms. Ariola for just a moment. How's the funding for supplying that additional security? Where are those officers going to come from?
It's about to be cut by 15%.
Mr. Spencer, they assured us that this campsite would be secure. But in the course of conversation, they mentioned something about the migrants are free to come and go. They can't be held there. So we were up in the control tower, and you could see the place they were saying they were going to build the camp, and then you could look over and see the playground. I asked the question, so a migrant can walk out, and these are, as has been mentioned, single adult males. They could freely walk out of the migrant camp, walk down the street, and walk in the playground. And I was told that was a hypothetical question. Had you been involved in the planning process, had NEPA not been shortcut, is this the kind of issue you would have looked at, and is that a hypothetical question?
Thank you, sir. That question is definitely something I would have brought up if I was able to attend last week. That is one of our concerns. The fact that camp is going to be put, like I said before, right next to a youth complex where there's going to be lots of children is definitely concerning as a law enforcement aspect. And the fact that we also haven't been from our union anyway, we haven't been given the opportunity to bring up our safety concerns with the officers either. 2 officers on a day-to-day basis is already unsafe as it is, in my opinion, to monitor that area. And now you're going to add 2,000 more people in a tent in probably some pretty detrimental living conditions. And when they're able to, they come and go as they please. That's going to be our responsibility, the U.S. Park Police. NYPD were gracious enough to give some officers to take care of the inside of the tent, the facility itself, but we are going to be the ones that are responsible for everything that happens outside of that tent area.
And just to be clear, that does cause you concern.
It's very concerning to us.
And also, I know as the leader of the Park Fraternal Order of Police that you're able to come here and testify. Do you believe there's other Park Service employees that would fear retribution if they were to speak out? Do you sense that there are others in the Park Service that are not comfortable with this decision?
I would imagine there are probably more employees in the Park Service. I can definitely tell you that there are employees in my agency that would love to speak out about this, but they'd be in fear of what would happen with their career.
Thank you, sir. So as we visited the park and I was learning more about it, I was fascinated that a facility like this existed in such a populated area, and that, you know, 1 million people a year visit this park. And looking at the park map, it showed the area actually where the migrant shelters are going to be built is labeled as a grasslands restoration project, and in parentheses underneath that on the map, it said public access denied. I know the Audubon Society has done work there. There's an ecology village. There's all the other recreational opportunities. And, you know, it bothered me to hear that referred to as just an airport in Brooklyn. I live in a national park, and that would be very offensive to me if somebody said it was just a bathhouse in Arkansas. There's a lot of pride in the local communities where these parks exist, but to me that's just an indication of how this whole situation is being viewed, that it's just an airport in Brooklyn. Who cares if we build a few migrant shelters on it? I'm going to give the two local authorities in Brooklyn an opportunity to talk about that and to make any final closing comments you would like to. We'll start with you first, Ms. Ariola.
The comments were very, very insulting because we all love our parkland, we all love our green space, and it may not look like Yellowstone or anything else in any other state. It's ours. And it is not just a rundown runway. It is a place where people go and enjoy, up to 1 million people per day. And it's where schools go, and schools have their after-school recreational athletic fields, and they play there. It's where people have a community garden. It is a place of community for the surrounding communities. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk, you know, Ms. Acer said about, you know, organizations doing their job and getting people asylum, you know, status. But if that were the case, why is Kathy Hochul employing the National Guard to work as social workers to make sure that their paperwork goes through? And what happened to our homeless population that were New Yorkers prior to the migrants coming into this? Have they evaporated? Have our veterans, homeless veterans, have they evaporated? Such focus is being given to this that all the other issues that New Yorkers are facing have just gone to the wayside. But we are stretched so thin that we're now looking at national parks that are not safe. If anyone saw the video that played earlier, Assemblymember Williams was there. She was in 10 inches of water. That's not on a hurricane. That's on a light rainfall. It is unsafe to put the migrants there. It is unsafe for anyone to be there. We've said it from the start. This is not any type of NIMBY type of ask. This is bipartisan. This is what it should be. A Republican and a Democrat who are working together to make sure that the integrity of their park remains what it should be as a national park. The surrounding communities remain as they should be, able to enjoy that park, and that the migrants, the homeless, and those who are seeking asylum are tended to. But we can't continue to do it because there is no more room at the inn, and our borders are not closing, and unless they do, we are going to continue to be overrun, and it won't just be New York, it'll be every city in every state across America. Thank you for the time. Thank you for coming to see our national park, and thank you for hosting this session for us, this hearing.
Assemblywoman Williams, thank you for your passion to speak out on this. I didn't introduce you as a Democrat member of the New York General Assembly, but it's been established here in the discussions. Any closing remarks and
Yes,
about just an airport in Brooklyn?
Thank you so very much. And we had to travel all the way from the southern side of Brooklyn to hear that our national park is just a regular runway. Well, that might be your opinion, and we've heard many opinions float around this room today. However, our visit here to Congress is to talk about using what we call our national park, the misuse and the intent to house 2,000+ men. We talk about protected fields there. In every area of Floyd Bennett Field, there is signage, and the signage says, area closed, do not enter. It's a natural resource protection area. Violators are subjected to be fined. Grassland habitat management area. The following activities are prohibited: entry, kite flying, pets, fires. We've heard from Mr. Spence, 2 officers. How are you going to man 2,000 individuals there and to keep them off the grass? Not to mention, there are other things floating around. Right across the street, we have a very big area, Bottle Beach, that is contaminated with radiation, that is closed off. What is to say that they won't end up on that side of the beach? So we have to be very vigilant of what is we're saying. Myself and my colleague here, we come together in a bipartisan effort because our community have a voice. And the one thing that I did not say, when they spoke earlier about low-income and communities of color, in the 5th 9th Assembly District, 70% of our population is Black. Another 25 to almost 30% is white. So we really need to do our homework, and probably if they came into our communities to do a public assessment or to hear from individuals, you would see the diversity of our community. And as taxpayers, we should be concerned about what is happening in our backyard. As parents, we should be concerned about the safety of our children. So I applaud you, Chairman, to having us here on this platform to talk about our natural resources and how our natural resources, our national park, is being used as a pawn and is not being said for what it is. We're supposed to be ambassadors of our national parks. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer, you never got asked the question, but have you worked at other national parks other than Gateway?
No, Mr. Chairman. I actually am based out of here in D.C. We only have 3 field offices: D.C., New York, and San Francisco.
How do you think it makes the law enforcement officers feel at Gateway to hear their park called just an airport in Brooklyn?
I don't believe my members who are proud New Yorkers up there would appreciate that comment, but that's okay.
Thank you. The ranking member, I believe, has an announcement.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Before we wrap up, I'd like to